high among the frozen peaks of the western Himalayas, far beyond crowded cities, beyond forests, beyond fertile valleys, there stands a mountain unlike any other on Earth. Its summit rises silently into the thin Tibetan sky. Snow and ice cling to its dark stone slopes throughout the year. Powerful rivers begin their journeys not far from its base. For thousands of years, travelers, pilgrims, monks, and explorers have looked upon this mountain with awe. Yet unlike Everest, K2, or countless other famous peaks, almost nobody has ever attempted to stand upon its summit. This is Mount Kailash, a mountain that has remained untouched for thousands of years. Every year, thousands of pilgrims travel from India, Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, and many other parts of the world. Some spend months preparing for the difficult journey. Many walk more than 50 kilometers around the mountain in a sacred pilgrimage known as the Kora. Some complete the journey only once in their lifetime. Others return again and again despite the freezing temperatures, high altitude, and physically demanding terrain. Yet while thousands walk around Mount Kailash, almost no one climbs it. Its summit remains one of the least disturbed places on Earth. Unlike the world's tallest mountains, there are no successful climbing expeditions celebrated in history. No photographs taken from its peak. No flags planted upon its summit. No famous stories of conquest. The mountain remains exactly as generations before us saw it. Silent, untouched, watching the centuries pass. Why? Why has no one climbed Mount Kailash? Is climbing officially forbidden? Or have people simply chosen not to? Why do millions consider this mountain sacred? How did one isolated peak become revered by 4 different religions? Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the ancient Bon tradition. What inspired such extraordinary devotion across so many cultures? And there are the stories. Some claim strange magnetic forces surround the mountain. Others believe time behaves differently near its slopes. Legends speak of hidden realms, immortal beings, secret caves, and knowledge lost to history. Across the internet, extraordinary claims continue to spread. But how much of this is supported by evidence? What do archaeologists actually know? What have geologists discovered about the mountain's unusual shape? What do historians say about its importance? And where does established science end? While legend begins, these questions have fascinated researchers, explorers, and pilgrims for generations. Yet Mount Kailash refuses to offer simple answers. Unlike many ancient mysteries, this story is not built upon a single discovery. Instead, it lies at the intersection of geography, history, religion, archaeology, and human imagination. Throughout this documentary, we will explore Mount Kailash using the best evidence available from archaeology, geology, historical records, religious traditions, satellite imagery, and modern scientific research. Where strong evidence exists, we will present it clearly. Where historians disagree, we will explain the competing interpretations. And where only legends survive, we will distinguish carefully between belief and established fact. Our goal is not to challenge faith, nor to prove extraordinary claims, but to understand why this remarkable mountain has inspired wonder for thousands of years. Because some mysteries are solved by excavation, others by science, and some continue to endure because they exist not only in the landscape, but also within the human imagination. The closer we move toward Mount Kailash, the more difficult it becomes to separate history from belief.
Long before empires rose across Asia, long before caravans crossed deserts carrying silk and spices, long before maps gave names to distant mountains, there existed a vast land unlike anywhere else on Earth. A place so high, so remote, and so unforgiving that many came to know it simply as the roof of the world. This immense region is the Tibetan Plateau, stretching across more than 2.5 million square kilometers. It is the highest and largest plateau on our planet. Much of its surface lies more than 4,000 meters above sea level, making it one of the most extreme environments where humans have ever lived. Here, the air is thin, Oxygen levels are dramatically lower than at sea level. The sun shines with unusual intensity. Winters are long and bitterly cold. Even during summer, freezing temperatures can arrive without warning. Towering above much of this remarkable landscape rises the Himalayan mountain system, formed over millions of years as the Indian tectonic plate slowly collided with the Eurasian plate. The tremendous force of that collision continues today, pushing the mountains upward little by little with each passing century. Among these towering peaks stands Mount Kailash. Located in the far western part of the Tibetan Plateau, within today's Tibet Autonomous Region of China, the mountain rises to an elevation of approximately 6,638 meters, or nearly 21,800 feet above sea level. Although many Himalayan peaks are taller, few possess a shape as distinctive. Its steep, symmetrical faces rise almost like a natural pyramid, their dark rock layered with snow and ice. From certain angles, the mountain appears almost perfectly sculpted, leading generations of travelers to believe that no ordinary mountain could look quite like this. Geologists, however, explain that its remarkable appearance is the result of millions of years of uplift, erosion, freezing temperatures, and glacial activity acting upon ancient rock formations. Nature itself, given enough time, is capable of producing extraordinary symmetry. Yet geography alone cannot explain why Mount Kailash became so mysterious. Its location played an equally important role. Unlike mountains standing near major population centers, Kailash lies hundreds of kilometers from large cities. The surrounding landscape consists of barren plains, rocky valleys, glacial streams, and windswept mountain passes that remain difficult to cross even today. For thousands of years, reaching this region required an extraordinary journey. Travelers crossed dangerous passes where snowstorms could appear within hours. Rivers swollen by melting glaciers blocked narrow valleys. Strong winds swept across the plateau with little warning. The thin air exhausted even experienced travelers. Food was scarce. Fuel for fires was limited. Every step demanded patience and endurance. Unlike fertile river valleys where civilizations flourished, the Tibetan Plateau offered few conditions suitable for large permanent settlements. Farming was difficult at such high elevations. The growing season was short, the climate harsh. Most communities survived through herding yaks, sheep, and goats, adapting their lives to one of Earth's most demanding environments. Because of these conditions, relatively few outsiders reached Mount Kailash throughout much of history. Many who wrote about the mountain had never actually seen it. Instead, knowledge traveled slowly along ancient trade networks, carried by merchants, monks, pilgrims, and explorers who exchanged stories across Asia. Although the famous Silk Road passed mainly to the north, smaller trade routes crossed portions of the Tibetan Plateau, connecting India, Nepal, Tibet, and Central Asia. These difficult paths carried salt, wool, medicinal herbs, precious stones, religious manuscripts, and ideas that moved between distant cultures. Pilgrims following these ancient routes often shared remarkable descriptions of Mount Kailash. Some spoke of its perfect shape. Others described the spiritual power they felt while walking around it. Many believed the mountain stood at the very center of the world. As these stories spread, the mountain's reputation grew far beyond the people who had actually visited it. Today, modern technology allows scientists to study the region in ways that ancient travelers could never have imagined. High-resolution satellite imagery maps every ridge, valley, and glacier surrounding Mount Kailash. Digital elevation models measure its slopes with extraordinary precision. Climate scientists monitor snowfall, glacial retreat, and seasonal weather patterns from space. Geographers continue to study the rivers that originate near the mountain, including waterways connected to some of Asia's greatest river systems. Historical travel accounts also help researchers understand how earlier generations experienced this isolated landscape. The journals of explorers, Buddhist monks, Hindu pilgrims, and Tibetan travelers provide valuable glimpses into journeys that were often dangerous and unpredictable. While these accounts sometimes mix observation with personal belief, together they reveal how extraordinary the region appeared to those who reached it. Even with modern roads, satellite navigation, and advanced equipment, Mount Kailash remains remarkably remote. The journey still demands careful planning. High altitude continues to challenge visitors. Sudden storms still close mountain passes. The landscape remains vast, silent, and largely untouched. Perhaps this isolation explains why so many mysteries came to surround the mountain. Far from crowded cities, far from the centers of political power, hidden among some of the highest mountains on Earth, Mount Kailash remained protected not by walls, but by geography itself. And perhaps isolation protected the mountain and allowed its mystery to grow. Long before kingdoms drew borders across Asia, long before explorers measured mountains with scientific instruments, long before satellites photographed the peaks of the Himalayas, Mount Kailash had already become one of the world's most sacred places. Unlike almost any other mountain on Earth, its importance does not belong to a single civilization, nor to a single religion. Instead, for thousands of years, people from different cultures have looked upon the same mountain and seen something deeply meaningful. Today, Mount Kailash is considered sacred by followers of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the ancient Bon religion. Each tradition tells a different story. Each offers its own understanding. Yet remarkably, all four point toward the same lonely peak rising above the Tibetan plateau. Perhaps nowhere else on Earth has a single mountain inspired such diverse spiritual beliefs. For millions of Hindus, Mount Kailash is regarded as the earthly home of Lord Shiva. In Hindu tradition, Shiva is one of the principal deities of the Trimurti, often associated with transformation, meditation, and cosmic balance. Ancient Hindu scriptures describe Kailash as the divine mountain where Shiva resides with his consort, Parvati. Far above the ordinary world, the mountain becomes a place where heaven and earth appear to meet. For countless pilgrims, walking around Mount Kailash is not simply a journey through the mountains. It is an act of devotion. Many believe that completing a single circuit of the mountain, known as the Kailash Parikrama or Kora, brings spiritual merit. Some traditions teach that repeated pilgrimages help purify past actions and encourage spiritual growth. Whether understood literally or symbolically, the mountain remains one of Hinduism's holiest landscapes. Buddhism offers a different understanding. In Tibetan Buddhism, Mount Kailash is known as Kong Rinpoche, the precious snow jewel. Rather than serving as the home of Shiva, many Buddhists associate the mountain with Dimchak, also known as Chakrasambhara, a deity representing supreme enlightenment and the union of wisdom and compassion. The perfectly balanced shape of the mountain symbolizes harmony within the universe. For Buddhist pilgrims, circling Kailash becomes an act of meditation and motion. Each step represents the gradual path toward awakening. Prayer flags flutter in the mountain winds. Prayer wheels turn quietly in pilgrims' hands. Mantras are repeated with each careful step through the thin mountain air. The destination is not the summit. The journey itself becomes the sacred practice. Jain tradition offers yet another remarkable perspective. According to Jain belief, the first Tirthankara, Rishabhanatha, also known as Adinatha, attained liberation near Mount Kailash at a place called Ashtapada. Although historians continue to debate the precise location of Ashtapada, the mountain has remained deeply respected within Jain tradition for centuries. Here, the mountain symbolizes liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth. It becomes a reminder of spiritual discipline, self-control, and the search for ultimate truth. Even older than these traditions is the ancient Bon religion. Long before Buddhism spread across Tibet, Bon practitioners already regarded Mount Kailash as the center of their sacred universe. In Bon cosmology, the mountain is closely connected with the sky deity Sipai, Gyalmo, and other powerful spiritual beings. Many ancient rituals focused upon maintaining harmony between humanity, nature, and the unseen world. Although Bon and Tibetan Buddhism later influenced one another in many ways, each continues to preserve its own understanding of Kailash. Despite their differences, these four traditions share one remarkable feature. None encourages climbing the summit. Instead, the mountain itself is treated with profound respect. Pilgrims walk around it. They pray beside it. They meditate in its shadow. But they leave the summit untouched. This shared tradition has helped preserve Mount Kailash in a way unlike almost any other sacred mountain on Earth. How do historians know these beliefs are so ancient? The evidence comes from many different sources. Ancient Hindu scriptures mention Kailash as a sacred mountain connected with Shiva. Buddhist texts describe its importance within Tibetan spiritual traditions. Jain writings preserve stories linking the region with Rishabhanatha. Ancient Bon teachings also identify the mountain as one of their holiest places. Historical travel accounts provide additional evidence. Chinese pilgrims, Indian monks, Tibetan scholars, and later European explorers all recorded the extraordinary respect shown toward Mount Kailash by local communities. Although these travelers often belong to different cultures and religions, many describe the same remarkable pattern. The mountain inspired deep reverence. Pilgrimages continued across generations. The summit remained untouched. Modern anthropologists and historians continue studying these traditions today. They compare religious texts, oral traditions, archaeological evidence, and historical records to understand how Kailash became one of humanity's greatest sacred landscapes. It is important to remember that these traditions represent matters of religious belief. Historical evidence can help us understand when certain beliefs were recorded and how pilgrimage developed over time. It cannot determine spiritual truth. Different religions understand Mount Kailash in different ways. Each tradition carries its own history, its own symbols, and its own sacred meaning. This documentary presents these beliefs respectfully, not to declare one tradition correct over another, but to understand why so many different cultures came to honor the same mountain. Because long before modern borders divided nations, long before maps accurately measured the Himalayas, people already believed that one extraordinary mountain stood at the very center of the world. Long before maps, people already believed the mountain stood at the center of the world. Long before modern mountaineers chased the world's highest summits. Long before climbing became a sport celebrated around the globe. Mount Kailash had already earned a very different reputation. It was never viewed as a mountain waiting to be conquered. Instead, it was regarded as a place to be honored. Unlike Everest, where hundreds of climbers now reach the summit each year, Mount Kailash remains untouched. No official climbing route exists. No permanent climbing camps line its slopes. No summit photographs fill history books. For many people around the world, this raises an obvious question. Why? Is Mount Kailash impossible to climb? Or is there another reason? The answer lies not in the mountain itself, but in the belief surrounding it. For thousands of years, pilgrims from Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, and Bon traditions have regarded Mount Kailash as sacred. To them, the summit is not simply the highest point of a mountain. It is part of a living spiritual landscape. Climbing to the top would be seen not as an achievement, but as an act of profound disrespect. For this reason, pilgrims perform the Kailash Kora, walking approximately 52 kilometers around the mountain instead of attempting to stand upon it. The journey around the mountain is considered spiritually meaningful. The summit is intentionally left untouched. This tradition has continued across countless generations. Modern governments have also played an important role. Today, Mount Kailash lies within the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. Chinese authorities do not permit recreational climbing expeditions on the mountain. The restrictions reflect both environmental concerns and the mountain's extraordinary religious importance. Unlike many protected mountains where climbing is regulated for safety or conservation alone, Mount Kailash carries deep cultural and spiritual significance for millions of people. Several climbing proposals have appeared over the past century. Some explorers hoped to become the first people to reach the summit. Others viewed the mountain as one of the final great unclimbed peaks. Yet these plans repeatedly met strong opposition from religious communities and cultural organizations. Many argued that climbing Kailash would violate centuries of sacred tradition. Perhaps the most well-known example involves the legendary Italian mountaineer Reinhold Messner. Widely regarded as one of history's greatest climbers, Messner reportedly received permission in the 1980s to attempt an ascent. Instead of accepting the opportunity, he declined. Messner later explained that climbing such a sacred mountain would show disrespect toward the beliefs of the people who had revered it for thousands of years. His decision became widely respected within the climbing community. It demonstrated that not every mountain must be conquered simply because it can be. Over the years, other proposed expeditions have also been abandoned or refused, some because of official regulations, others because of ethical concerns. In many ways, Mount Kailash represents a rare exception within modern mountaineering. Around the world, climbers often celebrate reaching previously untouched summits. Exploration has long been associated with discovery and achievement. But Mount Kailash challenges that mindset. It asks a different question. Should every place that humans are capable of reaching actually be reached? Many historians, anthropologists, and religious scholars believe the answer depends upon understanding cultural values rather than physical ability. A mountain may be made of stone, yet its meaning can extend far beyond geology. For millions of believers, Kailash represents faith, identity, tradition, and centuries of shared history. Respecting those traditions has become part of protecting the mountain itself. This distinction is important. People sometimes say that no one can climb Mount Kailash. Strictly speaking, there is no scientific evidence suggesting the mountain is physically impossible to climb. Experienced mountaineers have successfully climbed far higher and technically more difficult peaks throughout the Himalayas. The issue is not whether humans are capable of climbing Kailash. It is whether they should. That difference changes the entire conversation. The mountain's untouched summit is not necessarily the result of physical impossibility. It is largely the result of collective respect shown across generations. Government policies reinforce that protection. Religious traditions encourage it. Many climbers themselves willingly accept it. Modern interviews with experienced mountaineers often reflect this same perspective. Rather than expressing frustration, many acknowledge that some places possess cultural importance greater than personal ambition. Leaving the summit untouched can itself become an act of respect. In this way, Mount Kailash has become something extraordinary, not simply because it remains unclimbed, but because people from different nations, cultures, and religions have largely agreed that it should remain so. Few places on Earth inspire such remarkable agreement. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Mount Kailash is that exploration is not always about standing at the highest point. Sometimes, wisdom is knowing when not to continue upward. And perhaps, the greatest mystery is not why people failed to climb a mountain, but why they chose not to. Long before the internet connected billions of people, long before social media transformed the way information spreads, Mount Kailash was already surrounded by extraordinary stories. Pilgrims shared them, travelers repeated them, explorers carried them across continents. Today, those same stories travel farther and faster than ever before. Videos gather millions of views. Websites repeat dramatic claims. Online discussions often blur the line between historical fact, scientific evidence, and legend. Some stories are ancient. Others appeared only within the last few decades. Together, they have turned Mount Kailash into one of the internet's greatest mystery destinations. But what do these claims actually say? And more importantly, what does the evidence tell us? One of the most common claims suggests that time somehow passes differently near Mount Kailash. According to some visitors, watches behave strangely. People claim they experience unusually rapid aging over a short period. Others report that hours seem to disappear unexpectedly during their journeys. Stories like these spread widely online. Yet scientists have found no reliable evidence that time itself behaves differently around the mountain. According to modern physics, time can be affected by gravity and speed under extremely precise conditions described by Einstein's theory of relativity. However, these effects are incredibly small on mountains like Kailash and far too tiny for humans to notice without highly specialized instruments. Researchers instead point toward more ordinary explanations. High altitude can reduce oxygen reaching the brain. Fatigue, sleep deprivation, cold, and physical exhaustion can all alter a person's perception of time. Hours may seem unusually short or unusually long, without time itself actually changing. Another popular claim states that hair and fingernails grow dramatically faster near Mount Kailash. Visitors sometimes report returning from a pilgrimage feeling as though several weeks of growth occurred within only a few days. The story has become one of the mountain's most famous internet legends. Yet biology offers no evidence supporting this idea. Hair and nails grow through well-understood biological processes controlled by living cells beneath the skin. No scientific study has shown unusually accelerated growth at Mount Kailash. In fact, many scientists point out that dehydration, cold weather, and changes in appearance after several exhausting days outdoors may create the illusion of faster growth. The human mind can sometimes notice changes more strongly after periods of intense physical experience. Another frequently repeated story involves compass anomalies. Some visitors claim that compasses fail near Mount Kailash or point in unusual directions. Such stories often lead to speculation about mysterious magnetic fields hidden beneath the mountain. Geologists, however, explain that local magnetic variations occur naturally in many mountainous regions around the world. Iron-rich rocks can produce small disturbances that slightly influence simple compasses. Similar effects have been observed in numerous locations unrelated to any mystery. No scientific surveys have identified extraordinary magnetic forces surrounding Mount Kailash. The evidence supports ordinary geology rather than unexplained phenomena. Perhaps the most visually striking theory is the pyramid theory. Many photographs show Mount Kailash rising with remarkably symmetrical sides. Some people argue that its shape cannot be natural. Instead, they suggest it is an enormous artificial pyramid built by an unknown ancient civilization. At first glance, the mountain's appearance certainly seems unusual. Its steep faces, sharp edges, and balanced form easily capture the imagination. Yet geologists have studied the mountain's rock formations for decades. Their conclusion remains consistent. Mount Kailash is a natural mountain formed through tectonic uplift, erosion, glacial activity, and millions of years of geological change. Nature often creates astonishing symmetry without human involvement. Another claim proposes that Mount Kailash is hollow. According to this theory, enormous chambers or hidden tunnels lie deep inside the mountain. Some stories even describe advanced civilizations living beneath its slopes. Others imagine secret libraries containing forgotten knowledge. These ideas have become popular in books, documentaries, and online discussions. However, no archaeological excavation, geological survey, or scientific investigation has produced evidence supporting the existence of vast hidden chambers inside Mount Kailash. The hollow mountain theory remains speculation rather than established fact. Closely connected to this idea are stories about hidden cities. Legends speak of the mystical kingdom of Shambhala, secret underground civilizations, or lost worlds concealed somewhere beyond ordinary human sight. These traditions hold important symbolic meaning within several spiritual traditions. Historians recognize their cultural significance. But archaeology has not confirmed the existence of a hidden physical city beneath or inside Mount Kailash. The distinction between symbolic tradition and historical evidence remains essential. Modern internet culture has also introduced another set of extraordinary claims. Some videos suggest unidentified flying objects frequently appear above the mountain. Others describe mysterious lights moving through the night sky. Several photographs and videos circulate online claiming to show unexplained aerial phenomena. Scientists approach such reports cautiously. Most lack verifiable dates, original recordings, or independent confirmation. Many can be explained by atmospheric conditions, camera artifacts, weather balloons, satellites, or ordinary aircraft. Others simply cannot be verified. Importantly, a lack of explanation does not automatically become evidence for extraterrestrial activity. Throughout history, remarkable places often attract remarkable stories. The more mysterious a location becomes, the more legends naturally gather around it. Mount Kailash is no exception. Its isolation, its sacred status, its striking appearance, and its centuries of religious significance make it fertile ground for imagination. That does not make every story false, nor does it make every story true. Instead, it reminds us why careful investigation matters. Archaeologists rely upon excavations. Geologists examine rock formations. Historians compare written sources. Scientists test ideas through observation and evidence. Extraordinary claims require equally extraordinary evidence. So far, none of the most dramatic internet stories surrounding Mount Kailash have been supported by reliable scientific proof. That does not diminish the mountain's importance. Its genuine history is already remarkable enough. Sometimes, the truth is more fascinating than the legend. And sometimes, legends grow because people long for mysteries that science has not yet fully explained. But one lesson remains clear. Legends often grow faster than evidence. Long before legends surrounded Mount Kailash, long before pilgrims walked its sacred paths, long before explorers debated its mysteries, nature had already begun shaping the mountain. Not over centuries, not even over thousands of years, but across tens of millions of years. To understand Mount Kailash, we must look far deeper than history, far deeper than religion, far deeper than human civilization itself. We must look into the restless forces that continue to shape our planet today. Unlike many internet stories that describe Kailash as an artificial pyramid or an impossible structure, geology offers a very different explanation. According to modern science, Mount Kailash is a natural mountain. Its remarkable appearance is the product of Earth's own extraordinary processes acting over immense spans of time. The story begins nearly 60 million years ago. At that time, the Indian tectonic plate was slowly drifting northward across an ancient ocean known as the Tethys Sea. For millions of years, it continued moving toward the Eurasian continent. Eventually, the two enormous plates collided. Neither plate could easily sink beneath the other. Instead, the Earth's crust crumpled upward. Layer after layer of rock folded, fractured, and rose toward the sky. This collision created one of the greatest geological events in Earth's history, the birth of the Himalayas. Remarkably, that collision has never truly ended. Even today, the Indian plate continues pushing slowly beneath the Eurasian plate by several centimeters each year. The Himalayas are still rising. Earth's surface remains in motion beneath our feet. Mount Kailash emerged as part of this immense mountain-building process. Its rocks were lifted high above sea level as tremendous forces reshaped the landscape. Over millions of years, the mountain gradually took form. Geologists studying the region have identified ancient sedimentary and metamorphic rocks that record this long geological history. Each layer preserves evidence of environments that existed long before humans ever appeared. Yet tectonic forces alone cannot explain Kailash's remarkable appearance. Another powerful sculptor soon took over: ice. Throughout Earth's colder periods, vast glaciers covered much of the surrounding mountains. These slow-moving rivers of ice carved valleys, cut steep cliffs, and removed enormous quantities of rock. Unlike sudden landslides, glaciers work with incredible patience. Centimeter by centimeter, year after year, They reshape entire mountain ranges. Freeze-thaw cycles added another important force. Water seeped into tiny cracks within the rock. As temperatures dropped below freezing, the water expanded into ice. The expanding ice widened the cracks. Eventually, pieces of rock broke away. This process repeated countless times over millions of winters. Wind also played its part. Powerful Himalayan storms carried sand, ice crystals, and tiny fragments of rock that slowly polished exposed surfaces. Rain, snow, and seasonal temperature changes continued, wearing away weaker sections while leaving harder rock behind. Together, tectonic uplift, glacial erosion, weather, and time created the mountain we see today. Perhaps the feature that attracts the most attention is Mount Kailash's extraordinary symmetry. Its steep faces rise almost like the sides of a giant pyramid. Sharp ridges divide the mountain into remarkably balanced sections. From certain angles, it almost appears too perfect to be natural. This unusual appearance has inspired countless theories. Some claim the mountain was constructed by an ancient civilization. Others imagine it as a gigantic artificial pyramid hidden beneath snow and ice. But geologists see something different. They explain that the mountain's symmetry results from the way ancient rock layers fractured during uplift. Over millions of years, glaciers carved along these natural weaknesses. The harder rock resisted erosion more effectively than surrounding material. Gradually, the mountain developed its distinctive shape. Nature often creates patterns that seem almost impossible. The Giant's Causeway in Ireland, the hexagonal basalt columns of Iceland, the sandstone arches of Utah, and the towering granite domes of Yosemite all demonstrate that geology is capable of producing astonishing symmetry without human intervention. Mount Kailash belongs among these remarkable natural wonders. Modern science has given researchers powerful new ways to study the mountain. High-resolution satellite imagery allows scientists to examine every ridge, every glacier, and every valley from space. Digital elevation models measure the mountain's slopes with extraordinary accuracy. Geological surveys analyze rock samples collected throughout the surrounding region. Climate researchers monitor snowfall, temperature, glacial movement, and seasonal weather changes using satellites and remote sensing technology. These studies consistently support the same conclusion. Mount Kailash is a natural geological formation shaped through well-understood Earth processes operating across immense periods of time. None of this diminishes the mountain's beauty. If anything, it makes the story even more extraordinary. The same natural forces that created continents, raised mountain ranges, and carved deep valleys also produced one of the world's most recognizable peaks. There is no need to invoke impossible engineering or forgotten super-civilizations to explain its existence. The Earth itself is capable of remarkable artistry. Of course, many questions surrounding Mount Kailash remain outside the field of geology. Science can explain how the mountain formed. It cannot determine why generations of people regarded it as sacred. Geology reveals the age of the rocks. It cannot measure spiritual meaning. That belongs to history, culture, and faith. Together, these different ways of understanding the mountain create a richer picture than any single explanation alone. Perhaps the greatest lesson offered by Mount Kailash is this. Sometimes the natural world creates landscapes so beautiful, so perfectly balanced, and so breathtaking that they seem almost beyond belief. Yet the evidence reminds us that no mystery is required. Only patience, time, and the extraordinary power of our living planet. And perhaps nature itself can create wonders that appear almost impossible. Long before modern roads reached the Tibetan plateau, long before satellite navigation guided travelers across the Himalayas, long before tourism brought visitors from around the world, people were already making one of Earth's most extraordinary journeys. Not to stand upon a mountain, but to walk around it. For thousands of years, Mount Kailash has inspired a pilgrimage unlike almost any other. Rather than climbing to its summit, Pilgrims follow an ancient circular path known as the Kailash Kora. The journey covers approximately 52 kilometers, winding through valleys, across rivers, beneath towering cliffs, and over one of the highest mountain passes in the region. For many believers, every step carries spiritual meaning. The destination is never the summit. The journey itself is the purpose. Each year, thousands of pilgrims travel from India, Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, and many other parts of Asia. Some spend months preparing. Others save for years before making the difficult journey. For many, completing the Kora is a once-in-a-lifetime dream. Some return again and again, believing that every circuit deepens their spiritual connection with the sacred mountain. The path is far from easy. Although the distance may seem manageable on a map, the extreme altitude transforms every kilometer into a challenge. Much of the route lies above 4,500 meters above sea level. Oxygen levels are significantly lower than those found near the coast. Even healthy visitors often experience headaches, shortness of breath, fatigue, or dizziness. Simple walking becomes exhausting. Every step requires patience. One of the most demanding sections of the pilgrimage is Dolma La Pass, rising to approximately 5,630 meters above sea level. It is the highest point of the entire circuit. Pilgrims slowly climb steep rocky slopes before descending across snow-covered terrain on the opposite side. The weather changes rapidly. Bright sunshine may suddenly give way to snow, strong winds, or freezing temperatures. Many describe this section as the greatest physical challenge of the pilgrimage. Yet it is also regarded as one of its most sacred moments. In several religious traditions, crossing Dolma La symbolizes spiritual transformation. The difficult ascent represents leaving behind old burdens. The descent symbolizes renewal, hope, and a new beginning, although different traditions explain its meaning in different ways. The idea of personal transformation remains remarkably common. Along the route, colorful prayer flags flutter endlessly in the mountain wind. Their bright colors contrast sharply against the rocky landscape and white snow. Many pilgrims pause to tie new flags beside older ones already weathered by countless winters. According to Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the wind carries the prayers printed upon these flags across the world, spreading compassion, peace, and blessings to all living beings. Prayer wheels also appear throughout parts of the journey. Pilgrims gently spin them while quietly repeating sacred mantras. Some carry prayer beads. Others walk in complete silence. Some stop frequently to meditate. Every traveler experiences the journey differently. One remarkable tradition is especially striking. Certain pilgrims complete the entire Kora not by walking, but by performing full-body prostrations. After taking a few steps, they kneel, stretch forward until their entire body touches the ground. Stand again and repeat the process. Completing the entire 52-kilometer circuit in this way can require weeks. The physical effort is immense. Yet for those who undertake it, the practice represents extraordinary devotion and humility. Perhaps the most surprising feature of the pilgrimage is what it does not include. No one attempts to reach the summit. Unlike many famous mountains, there is no final climb, no celebration at the highest point, no photograph from the peak. The sacred journey always remains around the mountain, never above it. This reflects a belief shared across several religious traditions. The summit belongs not to human achievement, but to something greater than ourselves. Anthropologists have long studied why pilgrimages hold such deep meaning across many cultures. They observe that long journeys often strengthen both personal identity and community bonds. Travelers leave behind ordinary routines. They face physical hardship together. They share food, shelter, stories, and encouragement. The journey itself becomes a powerful human experience. Ethnographers studying Mount Kailash have documented these traditions through interviews with pilgrims from many different backgrounds. Although each person tells a unique story, certain themes appear again and again. humility, perseverance, reflection, gratitude, hope. Many describe the pilgrimage as far more than a physical challenge. They see it as an inner journey. Historical accounts also show that pilgrims have visited Mount Kailash for centuries. Monks, merchants, travelers, and explorers recorded seeing long lines of pilgrims crossing the high mountain passes despite freezing temperatures and dangerous conditions. Some accounts describe entire families making the journey together. Others tell of elderly pilgrims completing the circuit with remarkable determination. These records help historians understand how deeply rooted the tradition has become. Modern research cannot measure spiritual transformation. Science cannot determine the religious meaning experienced by each pilgrim. But anthropology and ethnography can help explain why such journeys remain important across generations. They reveal how shared rituals strengthen cultural identity, preserve ancient traditions, and connect communities through common purpose. Even today, despite modern transportation, satellite navigation, and changing societies, the Kailash Kora continues. Thousands still travel across one of Earth's harshest landscapes, not to conquer nature, not to claim victory, but to walk respectfully in the shadow of a mountain they consider sacred. Perhaps that is the greatest difference between Mount Kailash and every other famous peak on Earth. For millions, reaching the summit has never been the goal. Long before satellites orbited the Earth, long before archaeologists surveyed landscapes from the sky, long before computers analyzed ancient terrain, Mount Kailash had already guarded its secrets for thousands of years. Even today, after centuries of exploration, pilgrimage, and scientific research, many questions remain unanswered. Not because no one has searched, but because some places are extraordinarily difficult to study. Mount Kailash lies within one of the most remote landscapes on Earth. Extreme altitude, harsh weather, limited access, and deep cultural respect have naturally restricted archaeological investigation. Unlike famous archaeological sites where large excavations continue year after year, very little excavation has ever taken place around Mount Kailash itself. For scientists, this presents both a challenge and an opportunity. Could important discoveries still remain hidden beneath the surrounding valleys? The answer is quite possibly. Archaeologists know that humans have traveled through this region for thousands of years. Pilgrims have followed ancient routes. Herders crossed mountain passes. Merchants carried salt, wool, and precious goods between distant communities. Where people travel, they often leave traces behind: stone shelters, campfires, ancient pathways, ceremonial sites, fragments of tools. Small discoveries like these can reveal remarkable stories about how people lived in one of Earth's harshest environments. Some researchers believe unexplored archaeological sites may still exist across the wider Tibetan plateau, not necessarily beneath Mount Kailash itself, but within nearby valleys, high mountain passes, and forgotten travel routes. Many of these areas remain difficult to reach. Some have never been systematically surveyed by archaeologists. Others remain protected because of their religious importance. The mountain also contains numerous natural caves. For centuries, some have been used by monks seeking solitude for meditation. Others remain little studied. Ancient cave sites elsewhere in the Himalayas have preserved remarkable evidence of early human occupation. Whether similar discoveries await near Mount Kailash remains unknown. At present, no confirmed archaeological evidence supports claims of hidden underground civilizations, secret chambers, or lost libraries beneath the mountain. But that does not mean every question has already been answered. Science often advances one careful discovery at a time. Modern technology is transforming the way archaeologists search for the past. High-resolution satellite imagery now reveals ancient pathways almost invisible from ground level. Digital elevation models allow researchers to identify subtle landscape features hidden beneath vegetation or rocky terrain. Ground-penetrating radar, where appropriate, can sometimes detect buried structures without disturbing the soil. Three-dimensional mapping helps scientists document fragile sites while leaving them untouched. These methods have already revolutionized archaeology across Egypt, South America, Cambodia, and the Middle East. Researchers hope similar technologies may eventually improve our understanding of remote regions surrounding Mount Kailash. Climate change also plays an unexpected role. Across the Himalayas, glaciers are slowly retreating. As ancient ice melts, new landscapes emerge. Occasionally, artifacts preserved beneath snow for centuries become visible for the first time. Archaeologists working in other mountain ranges have discovered ancient clothing, wooden tools, animal remains, and even remarkably preserved human bodies released from melting ice. Such discoveries provide extraordinary windows into the past. At the same time, they remind us that climate change threatens irreplaceable archaeological evidence. Once exposed, fragile materials may quickly deteriorate. Researchers must act carefully, and often rapidly, to preserve what survives. Yet scientific curiosity must always be balanced with cultural respect. Mount Kailash is not simply a geological formation, nor is it only an archaeological landscape. For millions of people, it remains one of the world's holiest places. Many scholars argue that protecting the mountain's spiritual importance is just as essential as expanding scientific knowledge. Not every unanswered question requires excavation. Sometimes, preservation is the greater responsibility. This distinction is important. People often confuse unanswered questions with evidence for extraordinary claims. They are not the same. An unanswered question simply means we do not yet possess enough reliable evidence. Unsupported speculation begins when conclusions are presented without evidence at all. Science welcomes mystery, but it also requires patience. Every new discovery must be supported by careful observation, testing, and independent verification. That is how genuine knowledge grows. Mount Kailash continues to inspire both scientific research and human imagination. Future generations may discover forgotten trails, new archaeological sites, or additional clues about the people who traveled these mountains thousands of years ago. New satellite technologies, improved climate research, and advances in remote sensing may reveal details impossible to detect today. At the same time, some questions may never receive complete answers, not because they are impossible, but because history has left only fragments behind. That uncertainty is part of archaeology itself. Every excavation uncovers answers, while revealing new mysteries waiting beyond them. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Mount Kailash is not that every mystery must be solved. It is that some places remind us how much remains unknown. In an age when satellites map the Earth and computers analyze mountains from space, there are still landscapes that invite humility rather than certainty. And perhaps some mysteries survive, not because they cannot be solved, but because they deserve patience. Long before modern technology reached the highest mountains on Earth, long before satellites captured every ridge and glacier from space, long before archaeologists and geologists began studying the Tibetan Plateau, Mount Kailash had already become one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Throughout this journey, we have explored the mountain from two different perspectives, one guided by science, the other guided by belief. Neither tells the entire story alone. Together, they reveal why this remarkable peak continues to inspire wonder across the world. We began by traveling to one of Earth's most remote landscapes. High upon the Tibetan Plateau, surrounded by the vast Himalayas, Mount Kailash rises more than 6,600 meters above sea level. Its isolation has protected both its landscape and its traditions for thousands of years. Far from crowded cities, far from the centers of political power, the mountain remained hidden among some of the highest peaks on Earth. We discovered that Mount Kailash is unlike almost any other sacred place. It belongs not to one religion, but to four. For Hindus, It is the earthly home of Lord Shiva. For Buddhists, it symbolizes enlightenment and spiritual balance. For Jains, it marks the place where liberation was attained. For followers of the ancient Bon tradition, it has long stood at the center of their sacred universe. Different beliefs, different histories, yet all pointing toward the same mountain. We also learned why its summit has remained untouched. Unlike Everest or countless other famous peaks, Mount Kailash has never become a symbol of conquest. Pilgrims do not seek to stand above it. Instead, they walk respectfully around it. The Kailash Kora has continued across countless generations, transforming a difficult mountain journey into an act of devotion. For millions of people, reaching the summit has never been the purpose. Science has also revealed another extraordinary story. Mount Kailash is a natural geological wonder. Its distinctive shape was created through millions of years of tectonic uplift, glacial erosion, weathering, and the immense forces that built the Himalayas themselves. Nature, given enough time, can create landscapes so remarkable that they almost appear impossible. Alongside these established discoveries, we encountered many legends, stories of strange magnetic forces, hidden cities, ancient tunnels, unexplained lights, mountains that alter time itself. Some have circulated for centuries. Others spread rapidly across the internet. Yet careful investigation shows that none of the most extraordinary claims has been supported by reliable scientific evidence. The mountain's genuine history is already remarkable enough without adding mysteries that evidence cannot confirm. So, what does science actually know? Researchers know where Mount Kailash stands. They know its elevation. They understand how geological forces shaped the mountain over millions of years. Historical records help trace the growth of pilgrimage traditions. Religious texts preserve centuries of sacred belief. Modern satellite imagery continues mapping the surrounding landscape with remarkable precision. Climate scientists monitor glaciers, weather, and environmental change across the region. These discoveries provide a solid foundation for understanding one of Earth's most extraordinary mountains. Yet science also recognizes its limits. Researchers still do not know exactly how every sacred tradition surrounding Mount Kailash first developed. They cannot fully reconstruct every belief held by ancient pilgrims thousands of years ago. Future archaeological discoveries may reveal forgotten pathways, ancient campsites, or new evidence about the people who once traveled these mountains. Perhaps they will not. No one yet knows. Historians also continue asking why certain legends became so widespread across different cultures. Why do remarkable places inspire remarkable stories? Why do myths endure long after their origins have been forgotten? These questions remain open, and perhaps they always will. That uncertainty is not a weakness of science. It is one of its greatest strengths. Science does not claim certainty where evidence is incomplete. Instead, it continues asking questions, testing ideas, and patiently searching for better answers. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth becomes clear. Long before satellites mapped the Himalayas, long before explorers crossed the Tibetan plateau, long before modern science studied the mountain, people were already looking toward Mount Kailash with awe. Some saw the home of God. Some saw the center of the universe. Others saw only stone and ice. Perhaps all were searching for something beyond themselves. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not what is hidden inside Mount Kailash, but why one mountain has inspired wonder across so many cultures for thousands of years. The mountain remains silent, and perhaps that silence is part of its enduring mystery.